right. Today we're going to actually do something called constructions in our geometry. The last couple of weeks we did transformations, and we also need to learn how to do these constructions, because eventually if you work on some geometry things with this, you're going to have to learn how to use these to help you with the transformations. And so that's the idea here. Now, I didn't have an essential question here, and the essential question I'm going to put up here is describe how the constructions are similar, okay, or and different. So we're going to compare and contrast the constructions. Okay, so there's our essential question, or it's not really a question at this point, but it's our essential ideas. It looks like most of you got this question, the statement copied down. Is that right? All right. So we're going to get started. Before we go too far, I'm going to stay there for a second. What I did today is I gave you guys one of these packets with vocabulary words on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to go, as we go through the lesson and as we go through today, you're not going to see all of these things. You're going to see some of them. And when you get to that point and you see them, I want you to add some information to your list here. Because in geometry, vocabulary is very, very important. It's very important that when they say midpoint, you understand what midpoint really is. Okay? If they say bisect, it's telling you to do something. You need to understand what that is. So as we go through, I want you to have kind of a list of different words and what those words mean, so it's handy, and you can have it handy in your notes or in your notebook or that kind of thing to pull out when you're looking and reading directions and so on. Okay? So it does ask you to do a couple things. Number one, it says define the following vocabulary words. Okay? And again, we're not going to do all of these today. Some of them we've already done, and you can quickly find those in your notes and fill those in later. Then it says, give examples of what each looks like. So draw a picture of what it looks like. And then it says, name the item, or write a congruent statement. We'll see what congruent statement means once we kind of see what the word congruence means. But like a couple weeks ago, we talked about a point, and it's just a little point, and then we labeled it like the letter A. So when it says name the item, then if you labeled it A, it would be called point A. So the naming is giving it that letter A. Okay? And you'll see that as you go through your lessons this week. So basically, it says it's due in 1 week. And the reason it's due in 1 week is because we're going to do some of these words today in the lesson, but then some of the other words you're going to see as you go through your online lessons. So when you go through your online lessons, you're going to add that information to this list, and then you're going to turn it in a week. So if you want to bring this in person to show me you've got it done, so you can then keep it, that's fine. If you want to turn it into a Dropbox, scan it and turn it into Dropbox, that's fine also. All right, does that make sense to everybody? But I want to make sure that you've got these vocabulary words, because these are really important for you to be able to do the geometry. And make sure you understand what these are. All right? So I'm trying to emphasize them and bring them out to your attention as you go through your lessons. All right? Any questions on that? Okay, so we have one more person come in, and okay. All right, so one of the things that we've talked a little bit about is naming an angle. So as you can see from the very first one on the upper left-hand side there, it has the letters, the angle has the letters RST, and it gives the name of the angle, and you can see right below it has that little thing that looks like an angle, and it says its name is RST. Okay? So we could also name this angle TSR. Okay? The only thing that we have to keep in mind is notice where the S is in both of those. Where did I put the S in both of those? In the middle, right. And it's in the middle because the S is the vertex. Okay, so the S always has to be in the middle. I can't say RTS because that would mean that S is not the vertex anymore. The vertex is always going to go in the middle. That vertex is that point at where the S is, or the point where the two rays come together. Okay? And we can also label this particular one just angle S because, again, the angle is at where the S is. So the S has to, the letter in the middle has to be where the angle is. Okay? How about the next one after that? How could you label that one, name that one? Why don't you take a second to write down what the possible names of the one right next to it? It looks almost identical. Right here. Everybody sign in? Okay. So a lot of you decided to use all 4 letters, and actually for angles we only use 3 letters. I didn't say that to you earlier, so that's a good thing that you did that because that was my fault to not mention that earlier. So what you did, you caught my mistake, so thank you very much. And so we're going to use 3 letters. So what you can do is we can still call this one RST. Again, the S is in the middle, right, because the S is where the angle is. It's where the vertex is. We can call this one RSU. Okay? Somebody, now that we know it's just 3 letters, can somebody else give me another one to put up here? What's the other one we can use? USR. And do you guys agree with that? Yeah, okay. Okay. Somebody have another one? Yes. TSR, good. Anybody have another one? There you go. Just angle S. Okay? Now, I have a question for you. This picture right here. Can I call physics and I just use angle S on the picture? You see what it does? You call that angle S and that angle S, right? So this is angle S, and that's angle S. Can I call this angle S? Some people say yes, some people going, Talk about it for a second. Oh. If I said angle S, would you know which angle I was talking about there? No, there's 3 different angles there, isn't there? There's the big one, and then there's the 2 smaller ones that make up the big one, right? So if I said angle S, in this case, would I know which one you were talking about if you use that? Okay. So when it's just one by itself, like the first couple, then yes, you can just say angle S. But if it's like the next one, you actually have to use all 3 letters. Okay? Does that make sense? That way I know which of those angles you're actually talking about. Okay? And so that important piece, a couple things, when we are labeling things, and you're going to see a couple more things during the lessons this week that have to deal with labels and things like that. But when you're labeling things, the order in which you're labeling things and writing things down becomes very important in some situations, such as with your angles. Like in this case, S always has to go in the middle, right? So that vertex where that angle is always in the middle. The other 2 sides, you can reverse them like you see here, and then you can just use S if there's one angle, but if there's more than one angle there together, you have to use more information there. Okay? So, just keeping that in mind as you go forward, just as a quick little thing. But today we're going to focus mostly on construction. And then we're actually going to get some labels and stuff with the construction. So the first thing we're going to do is on your paper, you're going to draw a line. Now, thinking about definitions of words that we did probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, remember a line, you have a line and a line segment. What's the difference between a line and a line segment? Do you remember? The line has the arrows on the end. I heard somebody say it goes on forever, right? Okay? And a line segment has a starting and a stopping place, right? So we're going to need a line. So on your paper, and I would do this on a zip. Make sure you have enough room here. Give yourself a little bit of space because we're going to be constructing some information here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to draw a line, and that line, again, is going to have arrows on the end. And I'm going to draw it here too. We're actually work on how to construct it. And then how to construct perfectly the line. I don't know if you know why, but it's different things without using the texture or that. Okay, is everybody on the line? Now, the next thing we're going to do on your line, so we're learning how to construct perpendicular lines. Next thing we're going to do is you're going to place a point somewhere on the line and try and make it different than your neighbors. And you're going to label the point A. I'll put mine over here. Alright, so the next thing you're going to do is you're going to need your compass. So grab your compass. And for those of you at home, if you don't have a compass, you have like a piece of string or something that you can tie your pencil to that works. All right. Now what you're going to do is you're going to place your compass on point A, and you're going to draw an arc on the line on one side of point A. So before you go, let's see what I'm talking about. My compass looks a little different than yours, so I use a string and kind of. I'm going to place my point, which is one of my fingers here, on point A, and I'm going to draw an arc like that on the line. Okay? So go ahead and do that. And then you're going to label it B. Right here where it crosses the line. Now, hopefully you can change the size of your compass. If you did, just what I put on to make sure it's the same size as what it was before. Okay? You're saying that too. So I'm going to make sure I got this right. Okay, because then you're going to go to the other side and do the exact same thing, and that's the same size though. And I'll label that one, the point right there, C, so we can talk about it. So for those of you on the other end, we are going to do the exact same thing we just did, except it's going to be on the other side of A. And make sure you didn't change the setting of your compass before you do that. So when you actually have your compass, you have a mark over here about the same distance, should be about the same distance from A. You're going to label it C. And the next step is to make the compass setting just a little bit larger than you just had it. Just a little bit larger. Okay? And once you've done that, you're going to place the compass on point B and draw an arc above A. And repeat that. I'm going to show you just a second. Hold on. Let me read the directions first. Repeat from point C and then label the intersection. So here's what you're going to do. Your compass is going to be a little bit bigger. From point C, you're going to take your compass and you're going to draw an arc. You're going to draw an arc this way. And from point C, you're going to keep it the same size. You're going to draw an arc this way. Okay? And yours is going to be better than mine because mine is straight and stretchy, so that you're going to come to the stretch. Alright? And once you're done with that, the line that you have going down straight through here should be the same, should be a perpendicular line. Right on the point of intersection right here, E. And then, mine isn't, like I said, mine is because it's my string and everything, but you're going to come down and you should have a particular line with the stringage. You can lower down the straight line through it. Okay, so it should, your paper should look something like this. And then it should be able to draw a straight line down through here that would end up being perpendicular. Hey, once you're done, try to jump around. That's right here. Then it becomes a little bit different with what you're using for the time. Okay, once you've done it, I want you to try it again on your own to make sure you can do it and not have any questions. Okay, so you're trying it one more time on your own. Make sure you don't take the line that you're doing it to B and C. All right. So the reason I wanted to do a second one is because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw parallel lines. Now, before I switch slides, what do you know about parallel lines? Yeah, so they're 10 distance apart, aren't they? I'll explain them. So if I drew a line across, pardon? If I draw a line across, those two lines, and if that line is perpendicular to one of the lines, would it be perpendicular to the other line? If I had two parallel lines? So the question is, if I draw two parallel lines, I'm going to pretend that they're parallel. And obviously I can't draw perfectly parallel lines, just bring them like that. And I draw, let's say, here's my one line, here's my other line, let's erase this. And I draw the line perpendicular to this line. Is it going to be perpendicular to this line? Also, these two lines are parallel here. You can move to the line. You were thinking about it. You were thinking about it. Okay, what do you think? If I continue this line, would it be perpendicular to this line on the top? You say yes? Okay, that's absolutely correct. So, if I want to draw a parallel line, what do you think I'm going to have to do to get parallel lines? If this line is perpendicular to this, it's also perpendicular to this. So I need to perpendicular lines to get two parallel lines. Yeah. So, basically, here's what you're going to do. You're going to use the instructions from the previous slide to construct a pair of perpendicular lines. Obviously, there's still another set of directions because there's purple up there, right? Yeah. And once you've done that, then you're going to do it again. So let's look at what that looks like. When we start building. So you're going to do that. And I'm going to do a better job this time. Play. With B and C. So this time, get my ruler here, and I draw it just like we did before. I'm going to extend that line a little bit here. Okay. So now, what you're probably going to do is to get that line to go all the way this way. Okay. So another perpendicular, another line is parallel to the first one. The line that you see. Okay. Maybe putting it back to the 7 o'clock. Okay. We're going to get that again. It's 21 by 7 o'clock to talk about the date when we did our research. Okay. Okay. Which line are I going to do this as a something? Right now, right? I've got a BC and I've got a D. Which one should I do? I want to be parallel to BC. Okay, well, right now that AD is perpendicular to BC. Let me write that down here for you guys. AD, and I'm talking about in line. I'm going to label it. Right? Line AD is perpendicular. Perpendicular to line BC. And put the arrows in it because we're talking about lines, not line segments, right? So A is perpendicular to BC. I want something that's parallel to BC. I want to say that BC is parallel to something. Not sure if they're located, but okay, so we need to get a horizontal line through point B. This is be parallel to this, okay? So how am I going to get to be parallel to this? This is point B. When I just draw it freehand, it's going to be guaranteed to be parallel.
You need a ruler.
Okay, so we know this is perpendicular, so if this line is going through this line, it also has to be perpendicular, right? Okay, so now I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I just finished doing, because I'm going to do it on line A. So and actually I can use A if I want to as one of my points. And get the other point is here. Right?
Yeah.
And then what am I going to do?
GPS number.
Yeah. Do this. Do that. And then from line, you should have to go there. Okay. So one perpendicular this way, one perpendicular this way. Try it.
Alright, so the next set of basically what I was showing everybody is I'm going to draw a line here. I'm going to do my point A and draw a perpendicular line to that using this with my compass, getting this, and I'm going to draw my line through here using my ruler. And then I'm going to do that same thing again on this line. And then get my little X over here with the arcs, and then draw the line connecting it. So go ahead and try that yourself and see how you do it.
If you got one, more time to make sure you're consciously guided, you're not comfortable with it, because you can use it again. Let's look at helping each other. Thank you so much. Particularly going to finish up with your set test and have that in your notes, so you don't have to go through that through the online stuff, All right. So, great job with that.
So when you get to that, you're going to be able to find out. Now, when you do your online lessons, we're doing this with the actual compass and stuff. But when you get your online lessons, you know, the GeoGebra stuff, they show you even another way to do it using the computer, so that letting you guys do the computer part online on your when you go through the online piece. So don't just, this piece is there for the online piece, but you need to learn how to do it using the GeoGebra too when you get home. Okay, but it's the same idea. Because when I'm drawing arcs, if I kept the protractor going around, what would I end up getting? A whole circle. And so the GeoGebra uses circles to do kind of what we're doing now. So it's the same idea. But it's just how you do it using an electronic tool on the computer. And it's the same thing, it's just that we don't have to draw the entire circle, where on GeoGebra you have to put the entire circle with some of these things. But you need to try that with GeoGebra when you went to the lesson. Okay, so we're doing one, you're getting the other one, but you have the idea of what's really happening when you're doing it. Okay? So, there's a concept we need to know. I think this is one of the things on your list, so you might want to make sure that's there too. The segment congruence postulate. So we need to understand what congruence means. What does congruent mean? Does anybody know what congruent means?
Same what? Same size and length. Yeah, size and length. So they're the same exact length, right? Okay, if I'm talking about a polygon, it would be like size and the same shape, right? Okay? If I had a triangle and a square, it would be congruent, okay? Okay, so they're exactly size, same shape, and also the same, the same length of side and the same angle.
This is just talking about segment though, so it's a line segment, so we're talking about the exact same size. So two segments have the same length as measured by a fair ruler, whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be exact ruler. Then the segments are congruent. Okay? Also, if the two segments are congruent, then we know that if I tell you that they're congruent, that tells you that they are exactly the same length. Okay. Okay. Can I go on? You guys ready? You need a second or two more. I'll come back to it if we need to. Angle congruence postulate. If two angles are congruent, what do you say? Based on what we just did, because if two angles are congruent, what would you say? They're the same what? Same size, right? And they're the same measure. And so, if we do that, what this is saying is if two angles have the same measure, then they are congruent. If two angles are congruent, then they have the same measure. And so here's an example of two angles. And when we want to talk about their measure, notice it has a little m in front of the angle sign. That means the measure of angle 1 and then equals the measure of angle 2. And then it says angle 1, and notice what they use for congruent. It's a little equal sign with a little the tilde type thing on top of it. A squiggle, yeah. That's how we say congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And remember I said that there's a, in the directions for this, that you needed to write congruent statements if where it was appropriate. Okay? That angle 1 congruent to angle 2 is a congruent statement. Okay? So when you talk about congruent and things being congruent, or these congruent postulates, then you're going to make little statements like that. This is an example, except I want you to use the letters. You should use letters and probably your angles, right? Okay, a couple more seconds. So, while people are finishing, why do you think, the reason I need you to talk about this is what we're going to do next for our next piece of construction. Okay? Because we want to make sure when we're talking about things that we have equal and concurrent items. So we're going to use some of what we learned here to find what we call a perpendicular bisector and also an angle bisector. So that one of the things you need to know is the word midpoint. Before we get to that, so you know what I'm asking you to do when I use these words. A point that marks the center of a line segment is called a midpoint. It means it's halfway between the two ends. And notice it says line segment this time, so that means it has a starting point and an ending point. It divides the segment into two congruent segments. Okay? And if I tell you that the letters on segment AB, if C is a midpoint, that tells me that the length on one side, the length from A to C is supposed to be exactly the same as the length from C to B, if I tell you C is a midpoint. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and give you the rest of this. I want to get those last couple things done before we go. So we have if we have a segment bisector, that's really talking about the same, just about the same thing as a midpoint. The midpoint is just a point that's taken at that place. A segment bisector is a line that goes across that line, the other line, that it also says line, segment, line, or ray that passes through that midpoint. Okay, so it cuts the line into two equal parts. So if I'm going to look at the example I just had, I could draw a line through that. And it can be at an angle if you want, but it's going to go right through that midpoint of C where I had it before. Okay, and a special kind of segment bisector that we use, and we use it a lot, is a perpendicular bisector. And that perpendicular bisector would be the exact same thing I just showed you, except instead of that red line being at an angle, it's going to be straight up and down. It's going to be perpendicular to the other line. And it's going to divide the original line, the AB, in half. So each side is exactly the same. And I'm going to go ahead and give it the angle bisector. So it's a perpendicular bisector divides the line in two pieces, and the line is perpendicular. What do you think the angle bisector is going to do? Bisector divides it in two equal pieces. The angle bisector is going to divide the angle into two equal pieces. So I'm going to give you that, and then I'm going to quickly show you how to do those with using construction. All right. If you don't quite get this down, it's all this information is in the lessons, so I want to move on. So how do you construct a perpendicular bisector? Okay.
So basically, we're going to do the exact same thing we did before. Except to guarantee that it's bisecting.
We're going to construct a line segment and label the endpoints A and B. So this time we're doing a line segment, we're not doing a line.
And from A and B, you're going to do your arc. Keep it the same. Do your arc. Then put it just on the top. We're also going to do it on the bottom, down below. And then you can draw your line all the way through. So try that one quickly. I had a chance to try that. Something show that you draw your entire arc here. You don't have to.
As long as you keep that same length. Notice I did not change the length on my string, so don't change the length on your compass.
If you try it and write, if you haven't tried it, don't write, because you get this instructions from the online and stuff online too. I decided to walk through this and make sure you have the help you use like you know what you have to do. Okay. You can have a mark on each side. This could be all the way connected to, and if you just do part of it like I did before. Do the same thing. Okay?
So the last thing, most of you did that, we got that down. The last thing is, what if we wanted to bisect an angle? So this time, give yourself a little space and draw an angle. Don't make it too big, just, okay? And label the vertex B.
Then what you're going to do, you're going to place your compass on the vertex grid. You're going to place your compass on the vertex and keep the same length, and you're going to have to mark here and mark here. You can actually do this all the way out the vertex if you want. Okay? So again, don't worry so much about this right now. Worry more about trying this and then actually copying directions, because the directions are actually in the online stuff. Okay. I'm going to call this point now point A and point C. Once you've done that, you're going to take your compass again and you're going to put it on point A, and make sure your angle, which is the inside, you're going to arc in the same length from C, you're going to arc again. It's kind of like the same thing as if you're doing a straight line, isn't it? You have a mark and a mark, then you just put on here, and then you just connect it through there, and you have your 5-second green. You're going to do that with that? So, before you go, make sure that you take your compasses, we put them back in the box here, and then we put it back in the box up here. Make sure you don't forget to summarize, and that's a couple of things that you have to do every day. They actually bring it up this time over this point. Okay? No, you're fine. All else helps you with your hand. No, we can take that. Okay? I've got your money coming in. We're good. All right? So, make sure you get all my questions down. Remember what's that. And if you don't, you'll have your checkpoint to do. You didn't, and you have to come in. And you will find everything is fine.
And then Mr. Hayden to sign that, and then you can put it in the little thing out from my door, and you stick it in there. Okay. Yep. Did you just talk to me about it, that she needs to make up some pictures of it again? No, we just kind of talked with you about maybe use this again and go over what she needs to do so she doesn't have to come in again, or you think she can figure that out. That would be great, but. You okay?
Jacqueline, do you want to go get the science station?
You have the office, yeah. Yeah. Right here. Okay. And here's, okay. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I need to do like automation stuff, like how.
Have you been reading your emails?
Yeah.
What did it say in your email?